So in this short video, we're going to talk about the second piece of this week, which is quadratic regression. So if you recall, we looked at regression when we looked at linear functions. And we can use our calculator to model quadratic functions, just like we were able to do so for linear functions. You're going to put the data into list 1 and list 2, and you're going to select stat and arrow over to calculate. But rather than linear regression, you're going to select quadratic regression. So let's look at this first example together. I'm going to put my graphing calculator here, and we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and go to stat. I'm going to go to edit. I need to clear this information out of my lists. And for the x values, I'm going to enter 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. I'm going to arrow to the right and enter 0, 401, 1597, 3597, 6392, and 9991. Okay. So then we're going to select stat, arrow over to calculate, and we're going to come down here to quadratic regression, and we're going to hit enter. So there is the equation. A is 99.94 approximately, B is negative 0.40, and C is approximately 0.64. And it's telling you how to enter that into y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So my equation here, let's suppose they're telling us to round to the nearest hundredth, is going to be 99.94 x squared minus 0.40x plus 0.64. Let's look at another one. If you look at the second example, we looked at wording just like this when we looked at linear regression. It says create a scatter plot of the data with x equal to the number of years after 2000. So what we're going to be entering for the list 1 or the x values is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this into our lists. So you'll see here that I've already entered this data into L1 and L2. It says to create a scatter plot. So a few reminders about getting that scatter plot on your graphing calculator. If I go into y equals, notice that I need to have my plots turned on. So I've already done that. So check your graphing calculator and make sure your plots are on. I also need to adjust the window. So if we look here, we go from 6 up to 12. So I've gone from 0 to 15 and I'm counting by 1. If I look at my y values, they're all very small, which is why I've picked 0 to 2. And my y scale, I've counted by 1/10. So when we hit graph, we'll see those points come up and you can begin to see how it's starting to turn like a quadratic. So now we're going to find the quadratic function that best fits the data. Go to stat, calc, quadratic regression, and hit enter. And we're going to go ahead and write this equation down. Y equals 0.015. I'm going to take this one to 3 decimal places. X squared minus 0.105x plus 0.137. And then it says graph the aligned data and the model on the same axis. So I'm going to go into y equals, and I'm going to type this equation in that we found. And when we hit graph again, we can see how that quadratic really does model those points. Now this last question says, use the model to predict the year in which the internet is projected to reach 3 billion. So there's a little screenshot here of what we're looking for. And I'm going to need to change my window to find that, because right now my value only goes up to 2. So let's go ahead and make it go up to 4. And I want to find when this is going to be 3 billion. So I'm going to add another equation here, which is just y equals 3. And you can see my window still is not good enough. I don't see where it's intersecting. So let me go ahead in and let's take this up to 20. Now I can see an intersection point. And on your graphing calculator, in order to find that intersection point, we're going to go to second, and then we're going to go to trace, and we're going to find the intersection. So what we're going to do is make sure that we are a little bit, move my cursor over just a tad. You can see my blinking cursor here is a little bit below that intersection point. And then I'm going to be a little bit above that intersection point. And it doesn't like that. Let's find a better point. Let me get a little bit closer. That was a little bit too wide. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to guess. And that intersection is at 17.75, 3. So during the 17th year after 2000 is when it's projected to reach 3 billion. Only during word problems that involve a prediction of year do we not round, because it happens sometime during the 17th year. So that's going to be 2017. A lot of times we would say round to 18, but for a real world application problem, we're not going to do that. Here's one that I want you to try now on your own. So I'm not worried so much about you creating a scatter plot, because you're not going to be able to enter that onto your computer. I would like for you to do it on your graphing calculator though, and it's going to be the honor system that you're able to enter that in and pick the window and see the plot. What I'd like for you to enter over on the side now is the quadratic model using quadratic regression on your graphing calculator that gives the best fitting model. And then I also want you to use that model to predict the revenue in 2019. This is the opposite of what we did in the last problem. I'm actually asking you to figure out when x is 19. So you can plug that value into your quadratic model. We won't worry about you entering the answer to D. You'll have some time in your homework to practice with those. At this point, you may now begin your homework on quadratic functions and regression.